One more day until the most fascinating Sunbelt Media Days ever. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we're previewing the Sunbelt Media Days with ESPN's Rocky Boiman. He is going to be co-hosting Tuesday and Wednesday with our buddy Matt Stewart. And obviously, the big discussion is going to be Louisiana Tech. Rocky even talks Ohio. He happens to be from Ohio, so he finds that funny and interesting. And then we do talk about the teams, quarterbacks who are going to be there, who are not going to be there, who are the favorites, the new coaches. We get into it all. And of course, what's Keith Kill going to say? We do all of it, and we get to talk about it over the next 30 minutes or so. So let's get to it. He is from ESPN, and he is co-hosting the Sunbelt Media Days with Matt Stewart. He is Rocky Boiman, and he is Locked On Sunbelt. Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's preview the 2025 Sunbelt Media Days with Rocky Boiman, along with Matt Stewart. He will be hosting the Sunbelt Media Days Tuesday with the West, Wednesday with the East. We're looking forward to it. And obviously the big story, Rocky, it came out last Friday, official on last Monday. Well, a couple Fridays ago, official last Monday. Louisiana Tech is joining the Sunbelt. Your thoughts?
Well, it's been a wild couple of weeks, right? You've been busy, my
sure
friend.
Has.
But you've been doing a great job keeping up with all the coverage. And I mean, a couple of weeks ago, it was East Carolina was rumored to be joining, and then I live in Ohio, Dave, and they talk about the Bobcats joining. There's ever a team that in my head doesn't belong in the Sun Belt, it's the Ohio Bobcats. But I guess they were scratching it, and why wouldn't they? I have said for a couple years, and I still believe it. I think the Sun Belt is the deepest and best Group of Five conference there is. So if you're Ohio, why not at least look at that? But
Oregon is in the Big Ten. Anything can happen.
Yeah, exactly. I guess with La Tech being added, it makes sense geographically, which I think the Sun Belt does as good a job or better than any conference out there. We live in a world where, there's West Coast teams in the Big Ten, and, UC and West Virginia are in the Big 12, and at least, La Tech's there. I don't know if, nationally it gets people juiced up as much, but again, I think from a rivalry standpoint, I know there's a lot of bad blood down in that Louisiana area, which is rivalries and hatred are always a good thing, right? So I think for that reason it makes sense, and it should be a fun edition.
Well, a lot of times the rivalries are on the field. There's rivalries off the field, so we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of people are not there anymore, and so it's all new people. So hopefully, honestly, some of that carries over, and hopefully the rivalry is there. Let's see. Louisiana Tech was good when I showed up there in 2013 and 14. They haven't been good since COVID hit. Let's see if they can invest in their athletic program, because, all tides rise as boats, something along those lines, right? I just want all.
I got you. Yes.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Good thing. Good.
All right. So here's the other thing that I was a little bit disappointed about, but there are only 2 spots, whereas the SEC brings 3 players. In the ACC, you bring like the whole team. You get 4 spots, so it's tough not to bring a quarterback. Only 4 quarterbacks are attending the SEC Media Days. Jaylen Raynor is the big one, I guess. JC French is coming. But I guess, Walker Howard. And again, Rocky, I'm going to say his name's backwards, so I'm going to say it the wrong way because it could be Howard Walker. But it's Walker Howard, hometown kid. And I understand why he's not going. He just got there. And so it's like a reward for the guys who have been there for more than a minute. But it is a little bit disappointing. A guy like Colton Joseph is not coming. It's his job. I don't think there's a quarterback battle with Old Dominion. And so out of 14 quarterbacks, only 4 are coming. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think I was especially disappointed to not see Colton Joseph come in. I was on the call, David, when they hosted Georgia Southern last year. And I mean, it was a 47-19 or 16. It was absolutely a blowout win for ODU. And it was the coming out party for Colton Joseph.
Sure was.
We, I remember talking with Ricky Ronnie night before the game and how excited they were as California kid, and they liked how he ran, but he doesn't have much experience, and I mean, he absolutely blew up that night. So that was fun for me to see in person. So yeah, not to have him at Sunbelt Media Day, a little disappointing. I think it's, coaches, sometimes they like to defer to some of the veteran guys, which is getting harder and harder, right? And today in the world of the transfer portal. Right. And yeah, there's just not a lot of continuity at the quarterback position in general, right? In the entire Sun Belt. I guess, Alonzo Barnett comes back for JMU, but he's hurt, and they got a couple guys there. So either way, there'll be some good players that are coming in, and look forward to talking to them.
Talking to Rocky Boiman from ESPN. He is co-hosting the Sunbelt Media Days along with our buddy Matt Stewart. All right, so it seems like it is the same old. The favorites are still the favorites. JMU kind of picked in the East. The Cajuns and Texas State picked in the West, which is kind of interesting because of the quarterbacks. I'm a big believer, and especially as we talked about in this day's age of the transfer portal, none of these teams have the same quarterback coming back, right? Alonzo Barnett, like you said, the third, which is a tremendous story, is Matt Sluka is going to be the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Although it's not in order, but he played for Bob Chesney at Holy Cross. He was at UNLV last year. So there is some familiarity. Don't ask me to say that word right again. I got it out the first time. All right. You have Walker Howard with the Cajuns. We don't know who the Texas State quarterback is going to be. South Alabama's quarterback is up for grabs. And yet the guy who I think is the third quarterback, rarely do you see the quarterback coming back for the third year, is Jaylen Raynor. And nobody is very high on Arkansas State and Butch Jones and Jaylen Raynor, except for me. Why do you think, because I'm just big, same coach, same quarterback, like J.C. French and Georgia Southern and Clay Helton. I think, if it's not this year for Clay Helton and Georgia Southern, I'm not sure which year it's going to be, unless, of course, it's next year, because if J.C. French comes back again. But those are the guys that I'm looking at. J.C. French, Georgia Southern, and Jaylen Raynor in Arkansas State, because same coach, same quarterback.
You and I share that same philosophy, David. Head coach and quarterback returning, that is a major, major boost.
Just to let everybody know, this is a linebacker saying that.
That's right. That's right. And for Arkansas State, I'm not sure why people aren't higher on Arkansas State. I'm pretty high on them because, again, not only do you return the quarterback and the head coach, but also the top wide receiver and the top running back and Jaquez Cross. So when you talk about continuity in a day and age where that never happens anymore, your top three offensive guys in your HC come back. So I'm a little bit higher on them. Because of that than I think most people are. Texas State, I want to be high on them, but I don't know if the quarterback job is even settled coming out of camp. I know they like the redshirt freshman guy from last year. They brought in a couple guys, but yeah, you get the quarterback and the head coach coming back. That's a big positive.
All right, let's take a time out. We'll continue our conversation with ESPN's Rocky Boiman, co-hosting the 2025 Sunbelt Media Days along with Matt Stewart. We'll talk about why is not everybody talking about Arkansas State. I have high expectations about Jaylen Raynor and his improvement from 23 to 24, and hopefully for bigger improvement in 2025. We'll do that after we tell you about Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Game Time's Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Ever wonder what your view will actually look like before you buy? The app shows you panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. With Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Worried about what happens if plans change? The Game Time guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's continue our conversation with ESPN's Rocky Boiman, co-hosting the Sunbelt Media Days. Along with Matt Stewart, we talk about Jaylen Raynor and why are there not higher expectations for Arkansas State in 2025. Talking to Rocky Boiman, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. He's co-hosting the Sunbelt Media Days with Matt Stewart Tuesday and Wednesday. All right, so it was interesting what Phil Steele said. We had him on talking about the Sun Belt as well. Arkansas State had a lot of close wins, and they won all of them last year. But I saw that as progress, whereas Jaylen Raynor started basically as a true freshman. I oddly asked Butch Jones why he didn't start him, like when he's the beginning of the season, and he reminded me the first game was Oklahoma. Maybe we don't want to get the true freshman killed at OU, right? Maybe let's save him for a couple of games in, right?
Right.
All right, so good idea. So we wait for like game 3, which is fine. Okay. But I thought he grew up going from freshman to sophomore year, where as a freshman, he kind of pressed. If he didn't play well at the beginning of the game, he pressed at the end of the game trying to make up for it. Whereas in his sophomore year, I thought we saw the maturity. If I didn't play well for the first 3.5 quarters, I didn't care about it. All that mattered is I played well for the last 10 minutes of the game and we won the game. Now I want to see him take that next step where I don't need the last score of the game to win. I need to score at the beginning of the fourth quarter. So at the end of the game, I'm taking a knee instead. I'm up by a score. So I'm taking a knee. I'm doing that 4-minute offense instead of a 2-minute offense.
Right. No, I mean, that's what you want to be. And that's what you get out of having experience for him coming back for a third year. You mentioned the fact I believe they were 7-0 in one-score games. Right. And I know a lot of especially the gambling people say, well, that'll kind of even itself out and you lose some of those games that you won last year. But you get a quarterback with that amount of experience and the experience in the wide receiver and the running back as well. Maybe it dips, but maybe it doesn't. I mean, to your point, maybe he learns more and learns how to manage himself throughout the game and kind of battle those highs and lows that inevitably happen as a quarterback. So, I don't necessarily think that means all of a sudden Arkansas State is going to lose a bunch of one-score games this year. No way.
Well, yeah, because it was like we want him to be more consistent. Now I want him to be more consistently great. Kind of deal right from the get-go. And I get this because this is where I don't buy it from the coaches because I'm sure you've heard this. You play football your whole life. You're coaching kids now, right? Mm-hmm. If we take care of ourselves, we'll be okay. Well, the other guy's saying that, right? And so if your offensive guy is saying that and the other guy's defensive guy is saying that, something's got to give. I don't think there's a case where we're going to play a 60-minute football game. That's impossible if both teams are saying that.
Right. Well, it's of course a cliche, but I think it's more of just the philosophy of focus on the things you can control. You can't control how the other team prepares, but you can control how you prepare. You can control how you react to bad situations.
Correct.
And how experience plays into that. So, yeah.
I mean, somewhere along the way, they're going to make a good play, right? They're going to make a tackle, right? They're going to get off the offense, right? You're going to get around the guard, and you're going to get in there and make the tackle. That's your job.
Well, my head coach in college, Bob Davey, he used to always say, hey, those guys are on scholarship too, right?
Right.
It's not like they're a bunch of bums on the other sideline.
That's right.
Those guys can play. So, but again, I think that goes back to you can't control how they prepare, but you can control how you prepare, and let's make sure we get it done.
All right, we're talking to Rocky Boiman, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day, co-hosting the Sunbelt Media Days tomorrow and Wednesday. We're recording this the week before. We're dropping it on Monday right before Sunbelt Media Days. All right, what are we looking at surprises? Because ULM played really well last year, started out 5-1, and to nobody's surprise, on a side note, enrollment is up about 5%. What a shock. Football does well, enrollment is up at the school. How about that? If they go to a bowl game and get more excitement, maybe enrollment is going to be up again. In one of the more odd coaching changes, Del McGee has to take over during spring ball. Coaching staff changes almost the whole thing heading in to this season. I'm looking for that ULM improvement, right? They beat Vanderbilt. At the time, we didn't think it was all that big a deal. And all of a sudden, Vanderbilt's beaten Alabama. Then at the end of the season, they blew out Texas State, or else they put up a bunch of points against Texas State, but they only had a few wins. They had this great recruiting class, which we have no idea what that's going to look like in 3 years. But if it goes along the way of what Butch Jones did, it's going to take a couple of years for that to mature. I'm looking for that ULM type of improvement. Let's see if we can get to 4 or 5 wins. Anything more would be tremendous. But I still think it's a year away for Georgia State to contend. But even the losses that ULM had, they were in a bunch of ball games last year.
Yeah, well, let's first start with ULM. I was fortunate to be on the call when they upset JMU down in Monroe. And you want to talk about, I mean, the around town, there's not a lot going on down in the town around there, but people were in the streets and celebrating. And I really enjoyed talking with Bryant Vincent. I think he is just an exceptional coach. You talk about taking literally the toughest, maybe worst job in the country at the time last year.
Yeah, you got it.
And turning that thing around and winning the first, going 5-1 there. So I remember talking with him. He has like a binder. He says, of all the things you wouldn't believe I had to deal with in resurrecting this program, from water hoses not working on field, like just stuff that you take for granted, right? But what a tremendous human being. I really admire just the way he can just grind through any kind of adversity. Obviously with the fact that they're running back Hardy leaves, that's going to make it tougher on them. They have a pretty tough schedule this year. They're at Alabama week 2, Northwestern week 4. They finished pretty tough Sun Belt Conference play this year at the end of the season. But I hope that continues. By all accounts, and Dave, by doing this, it's harder and harder to figure out the makeup of a team in the day and age of the portal, because guys transfer before spring, after spring, they get a guy in. But by all accounts, ULM has had some of the least amount of roster turnover, which means people believe in what Bryant Vincent's doing. And then for Georgia State, Del McGee, I read he's got one of the top high school recruiting classes in the Sun Belt, which is important. I think I'm of the philosophy you can't just live in the portal. I mean, look at Ole Miss last year. They were the portal king, and they did some good things, but lost some games maybe they shouldn't have. But if you get that base of your high school recruiting, I think you have a chance. And with Del McGee and his ability to recruit, I don't think it's going to happen this year for him, to be honest. But I think it can happen in years, subsequent years after this.
Yeah, you got to be able to keep some of those high school kids, because obviously here's the difference between what has been in the past. You're not going to keep all of them. That's the thing. You're trying to keep as many as you can. The other thing about Bryant Vincent is I'm not sure you're going to find quite as an enthusiastic AD as he's got as John Hartwell. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to speak with John Hartwell. I'm sure we'll see him at SEC Media Days. He's an imposing figure because he's like 6'5". Right. But he's about as enthusiastic as an AD as you're going to get, which has got to help Bryant Vincent out a bunch. Probably convinced him to come back because he played a little footsie with Jacksonville State. He
did, yeah. Rumors are he turned that job down, which is good for Bryant Vincent. And but yeah, that's a tough deal down there, and he's doing great.
Yeah, we're talking with Rocky Boiman, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Because we don't have these coaches that are here for a long time. Like I think we talked about Ricky Ronnie, maybe the only one, right? He's on we're joking before we started on his 6th season. Technically, he started in 2020, although ODU didn't play that year because of COVID. Butch Jones is in his 5th season. There really isn't a coach, except maybe Ronnie, who is on the hot seat, because these Sunbelt jobs turn over so quickly. I mean, it is Clay Helton on the hot seat. They always seem to do well, but not quite well enough, right? I think Georgia Southern is going to contend, right? We have the new coaches in Tony Gibson and Dwayne Loggins. So, I'm not sure there's a coach really on the hot seat. Decimo just went to the championship game. So, I'm not really big on talking about coaches, getting fired, because I don't really want people talking about me getting fired. So I don't really like talking about that.
I'm not either.
I don't think anyone's really on the hot seat except maybe Ricky Ronnie. ODU needs to contend. I'm not saying they need to win it, because that's tough to do. But I do think ODU with Colton Joseph need to contend in the East.
I think so. This is Ronnie's best team. I mean, again, I hate talking about the hot seat stuff, but I think if I had to gun to my head, pick another one, maybe Tim Beck at Coastal. I think some high expectations out of him. But they're
but then that quarterback situation too. It's not. He doesn't have a quarterback situation. He's had a tough quarterback situation as well, right? I mean, Grace McCall.
Yeah, but he brings a new OC in DC. So there's kind of some upheaval there. But nevertheless, I think that I always say this is the good news for people that hate the portal. The good news is you oftentimes don't have to wait very long for your team to become good. You can nail a couple guys in the portal, and you can go from a team that's very mediocre to a team that can contend in any conference. So that's the good thing is there's no, even for Georgia State, if you're a Georgia State fan, you shouldn't just give up on this season. Anything can happen.
Right. We can give you an example about that. See, Orange Syracuse led the nation in passing last year because they hit on Kyle McCord.
Bingo. Nail that, and things are good. Yeah.
Let's take one more time out. We'll come back and continue and wrap up our conversation with ESPN's Rocky Boiman, co-hosting the Sunbelt Media Days along with Matt Stewart. We talk about how do you get past the coach speak in these Sunbelt Media Days, and we talk about somebody that Rocky actually knows, Dowell Loggins, in his first year at App State. Really do appreciate you. I do. We're probably very close to the 2,400 subscribers. I can't even believe it. I was hoping for, 150 subscribers in July. We're over 200. That's amazing. And we're going to be closer to the 2,500 well before kickoff. So really do appreciate it. Over 7,000 Twitter followers. We're going to be well over 8,000 before we kick it off in August. We're going to be closer to that 3,000 subscribers way before the end of the year. So really do appreciate it. And now we get to look forward to previewing the 2025 season with all the players and the coaches as I put all this materials together over the next couple of weeks. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Give me a little bit of time. It will take some time to edit it all together. So thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget about the audio podcast, Apple and Spotify. Obviously, you haven't, because if you keep on tuning in like you have, we're going to have a record-setting month. The first half has absolutely been on pace for a record-setting month. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, let's wrap up our conversation with ESPN's Rocky Boiman, co-hosting the Sunbelt Media Days with Matt Stewart on how you get past all of the coach speak. And he actually knows and has a little bit of a relationship with App State's new head coach, Dowell Loggins. So how do you approach this? Try to get guys that are, how do you get beyond the coach speak with some of these guys? Because I'm looking at, there's a Coastal player. Let me see if I can find it out. He went to Coastal Carolina. It is Nick Del Grande. I need to even see if that's how you say his name. He chose Coastal Carolina over Air Force, Army, Navy, Dartmouth, and Penn. So we know he's really bright. Didn't want to go into a military school. Okay. But he also passed up the Ivy League to go to Coastal Carolina. So, right. So I'm all right. So maybe, that could be financial situation too, right? Someone's paying for the school instead of you paying, so that could be.
Yeah, exactly. And NIL is a factor. Yes.
Sure. But nonetheless, someone had a chance to go to an Ivy League institution. Certainly not, don't want to disrespect Coastal Carolina, but there is a difference between going to University of Pennsylvania and Coastal Carolina. All right. But how do you get past, because I'm going to have some fun with that. Plus I see someone wants to be mechanical engineering, right? You usually don't get that out of a football player, usually
Right.
sociology or something along those, or communications, right?
Right.
Something not quite as difficult
What
as
we do,
mechanical
yeah.
engineering. How do you get past some of the coach speak with some of these guys?
Yeah, well, you're right. It is harder because the guys don't have the continuity, being there. But I think you just, with the fact that for the most part, they've been there in spring ball. You try to get an idea of the coaches and how they feel about the coaches. You can get a little insight. I think I do a good job of, getting some questions, give you a little insight on just kind of what's developing, what the coaches are like, what the players like, maybe even don't necessarily like about the coaches, and just get them to talk about that and talk about some of the other players that they have seen in spring ball that really look good. I mean, players usually don't lie about who looks good, who about other players. They'll flat tell you, boy, this kid in spring really looked good, and this guy is really a beast. We saw him in spring ball. So it's harder, but I think those are ways you can still get some information about a team.
And what about Dowell Loggins coming to App State? The word I was told is that he specifically wanted this job and doesn't have a whole lot of college experience. He's come from the pro side. He has spent most of his career in the pros, only about half a decade in college. And again, my understanding is he specifically wanted App State. He wasn't job shopping. He specifically, at least that's what he told the people, when he interviewed, he wanted App State. Whereas, Tony Gibson has spent his whole career in college. He went back home to West Virginia. So he may be like a Mike Desimo. He may be at Marshall for a long time. These guys, you have like Mike Desimo, unless he wins numerous Sun Belt championships, I don't think he's going anywhere. As long as he keeps on winning a little bit, they're not going to get rid of him. They got a coach for a long time, right?
Yeah.
If some of these other guys, right, we saw Signetti leave. If Bob Chesney wins a couple of Sun Belt championships, he's probably going to up and move, right? And so it'll be interesting to see on how these new guys, I haven't had Dowell Loggins on. I've had Tony Gibson on, and, we had a cool conversation after after I stopped recording, talking about football, talking about Marshall, what it means to be coaching at Marshall.
Yeah. Well, with Dowell Loggins, I got a pretty good relationship with him. When I left the Titans, not long after he came to the Titans. So I just kind of through some other people, I got to know him pretty well and got to know him, got to talk with him a lot. The last 2 years I've done South Carolina games. And so we've talked a little bit, and I think he's a brilliant guy. I mean, look what he did with Lenore Sellers, the quarterback. He's a potential Heisman guy, and I think a lot of that has to do with Dowell Loggins and his just how brilliant of an offensive mind he is, how well he can develop a quarterback. I think for App State, it was time to get some outside blood in. They always it kind of hired within, and why not? Right. Because they won so much, and but I think getting some new blood in, some outside mind and voice in there is a good thing. I think Dowell Loggins will do a great job. It's recruiting the portal, and by all accounts, he's done a good job of getting some players in there, and it'll take a little time. From what I recall, I think their schedule is manageable. So I think he can do a good thing. And then with Gibson at Marshall, I mean, if there's a crazier story in college football, I'd like to know what it is. Marshall wins the title, and then their head coach leaves, and I think it's 42 players leave, and then Gibson brings in 60 new players. I mean, if I told you that 10 years ago, you would say that there was no way that happens. But they win the title, and they got a long history, a long lineage of being a good football program. So I think it'll take some time, but I think it'll do well.
Rocky, I'm telling you, there's never been – I may be the only one hyping it, but there's never been a more hyped game between two teams that combined for 3 wins than Southern Miss and Mississippi State. Now, it may be because it's at Hattiesburg. If this was at Starkville, maybe not, because I'm giving Southern Miss a real shot at winning this ball game. And if you want to get somebody on a hot seat, mostly because it's a loss to Southern Miss, watch Jeff Levy lose that ball game and get on a hot seat before Labor Day. All right. He's only won 2 ball games, and I believe one is against an FBS school. The other one is FCS. So
right.
you lose to Southern Miss in the state of Mississippi, it's going to get hot whether he wants to or not. Now, it may not happen because it's still Mississippi State. They don't have a whole lot of money, so he may be there for a third year, but it's going to get hot fast.
No, you're right. But I mean, speaking of Southern Miss, we were talking earlier about, the importance of the head coach and the quarterback returning. The head coach and the quarterback returns just to a different program, right? I mean, Braylon Braxton is a quarterback, and Huff is the head coach, and I bring in two of Marshall's top wide receivers. So there is a lot of continuity there. I don't know if it's enough to really have an unbelievable year, but I think they'll be just fine. I absolutely do.
And I will say I did get a chance to get a little light moment with Gerad Parker, his first chance at coaching Troy. We got a little levity when he joined me right during spring ball. I asked him, you plan all these things, right? Your first game, first-time head coach, been in college a long time, assistant coach, taking over the two-time defending champs. He's got the game plan going on. He knows what he's going to say in the locker room, doing the Trojan walk, getting off the bus, doesn't know which way to go to the locker room. He's got to follow. He realizes halfway during the Trojan walk, he doesn't know which way the locker room is.
I did not know that story.
Can you imagine that? He gets off the bus and he's like, I got to follow somebody to get to the locker room. I don't know. Can you imagine that? And I appreciate somebody saying that, because sometimes you don't get that kind of levity, but that's a great story. Because once you get to the locker room, everything's settled. But now I don't know which way to go to the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, it all starts. Nothing can happen until you get to the locker room. Right? First thing first.
I got 90. I'm leading 120 guys into battle. I don't know which way to go to the locker room.
Way to go. Well, between that and then Crowder gets injured early in that season, right? It's just
Goose. Yeah. Well, he's coming. Goose is coming to the Sunbelt Media Days, and how can we not be a fan of a guy named Goose?
Absolutely. No, that's good. I mean, look, Troy won 3 of their last 4 games last year. So I think that's something to build on. And I like Parker a lot. So yeah, it's, again, teams can turn things around very, very quickly in this day and age of the portal.
All right. I'm not staying at the hotel. I don't know if you're going to be able to sneak me into the gym, but I really enjoy running in the heat and humidity of New Orleans. So
I'll get my run into downtown New Orleans early that morning, Dave. Both those mornings.
I will do that. I'm going to get in. I got an early 5 a.m. flight because I'm insane on Monday morning. So I'm going to run at noon on Monday, and then probably get up early Tuesday and Wednesday to get those runs in before media days.
Well, just make sure before I see you get some buys and tries in, Dave.
There you go.
Looking around with this
I'll do some push-ups and stuff like that. Appreciate it, Rock. Rocky Boiman from ESPN, co-hosting Sunbelt Media Days Tuesday and Wednesday, along with Matt Stewart. Always appreciate your time. Thanks so much for hopping on Locked On Sunbelt. And looking forward to seeing you down in New Orleans. Looking forward to catching up, Rocky.
You do a great job with the Locked On Sunbelt. I pay attention, and you're always on top of the information and keeping me up to date with things. So, great work, and keep it up. I look forward to seeing you here in a little bit.
Thank you so much, Rock.
Thank you.